Hello and welcome to my guide to the two-handed spear. In this guide you will learn how to dominate the team objective mode with the two-handed spear. But why would you choose the spear and why is it so good in the team objective mode? Well, the two-handed spear is extremely long, fast and you can deal a lot of damage while staying out of your enemy's reach. Also, the spear's sprint attack is just incredibly strong. The two-handed spear is the best weapon at the moment when it comes to dominating the team objective mode. And you can also counter other dominant weapons like the Highland sword with it. When played right, you will have insane kill-death ratios and an incredible amount of score points using the two-handed spear. But what do you have to do in order to play well with the two-handed spear? I gathered the 10 most important tips to tell you exactly that. The first tip is to stay close to your teammates. The two-handed spear does not have a horizontal slash, so it's extremely hard to fight multiple people alone. So what you generally want to do with the spear is to stay close to your teammates, or at least a single teammate that attracts the enemy's attention for you, while you can stay out of harm's way and still get a lot of kills. While doing this, you should also keep the second tip in mind. The second tip is to stay out of your enemy's reach. One of the strongest aspects of the spear is its reach. Most of the time you can position yourself in a way where you can deal damage to your enemies while they cannot even hit you. So always keep your positioning in mind and also use your dash frequently, since it's the perfect way to get some distance to your enemies. Oftentimes, especially against enemies using one-handed weapons, you will be able to dash away and hit them while they will be too far away to hit you. Alright, now let's get to tip number 3. Use your sprint attack. A lot. Your sprint attack deals 93 damage and has almost no downside, so use it as frequently as you can, especially against enemies who are overextended, because they are oftentimes showing you their back and are pretty easy hits for you using your sprint attack. But do everything you can to actually hit your enemies with your sprint attacks, because otherwise you are a really easy target since you're stuck in the sprint attack animation for a while. Now let's get to the most controversial tip. You can actually stab through your teammates to hit your enemies. And there is one scenario where you actually want to do this. You want to do this if your teammate has high HP and the enemy you are trying to hit has low HP. So whenever your teammate looks bloody or you hover over him and see that he has low HP on the bottom of your screen, then don't do it. But in a situation like this, it can actually be okay to do it. I saw that my teammate had a good amount of HP left, so I risked hitting him as well as my enemy. When you're hitting a teammate with a regular stab, it only causes 12 damage, and if you hit an enemy it will cause 50 damage, so it's a pretty good deal in most cases. And it's especially a good deal if you interrupt your enemy's strike and maybe save your teammate from even more damage. And always remember that you can heal your teammate afterwards. Now let's get to tip number 5. You can drag your stabs into your enemies. One of the best things about the two-handed spear is that you can hit enemies even if they are blocking if you're a little bit to the right or left of them. You do this by stabbing either a little bit too far to the left or right so you don't initially hit your enemy and then drag your stab into your enemy. If you do this, you will hit the outer edges of the enemy's hitbox, which will oftentimes make it possible to hit their body and not their block. This right here is a good example of dragging your stab into your enemy. I initially aim a little bit too far to the left and then pull my stab into him. Dragging your stabs into enemies is also crucial for the next tip. You can actually hit multiple enemies with a single stab. Most of you will now think something along the lines of course I can hit multiple enemies with a stab if one enemy is right behind another one. But far more important concerning this tip is that you can hit multiple enemies with a stab even if they are standing next to each other by dragging your stabs horizontally. This is why you often see high-level two-handed spear players moving their spears either to the left or right while stabbing. If you paid close attention, then you could see that I actually hit 2 of my enemies with a single stab. And this is exactly why moving your spear to the left or right while stabbing is so important. Now let's get to tip number 7. Don't forget about your overhead attacks. Since the spear has no horizontal slash, it is pretty easy to counter attacks against spear users, since most of the time they will just stab. This is where overhead attacks come into play. Especially heavy overhead attacks can deal pretty good damage and throw off your opponents. So don't be a person that only stabs. Try to throw in an overhead attack every now and then, especially in 1v1 situations. The next tip is to place your spikes when securing a point. What most spear players completely forget about are their spikes. The spikes are a really good tool for securing areas or choke points. And they will also help you to keep your distance to your enemies while you're still able to hit them. Placing spikes doesn't require a lot of time and can help you quite a lot, so don't forget about them. Tip number 9 is to use feints into alternative stabs if your stab reach isn't long enough or you want to switch targets. Sometimes if you stab, you will notice right away that the distance to your enemy is a little bit too big. By feinting into an alternative stab while moving towards your enemy, you will oftentimes be able to still get a hit in. But feinting into an alternative stab also makes sense if an enemy gets out of your range and you want to switch targets to another enemy. If you then feint, you will get a little bit more time until your attack goes through, and in this time you can switch targets. Now let's get to the final tip. Use special attacks against horses. Now that horses are finally in the game, the spear special attack finally has a use. It's incredible against horses charging towards you, so keep that in mind if this ever happens. Alright, I hope that you could learn something from this guide. If yes, then please like the video and subscribe to my channel. If you have any recommendations for topics that I should make a video about, then let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you on the battlefield.